They've been doing work. Let's dive into this Dakorien Moore situation a little bit. Because a lot of people are thinking that's a lost cause. A lot of people are thinking, oh, well, he decommitted, it's over with. It's all about money. It's NIL. This kid isn't tapped in. That's what a lot of people are saying. A lot of people are rumoring that. I wouldn't jump on that narrative just yet. I think that the Dakorien Moore situation might get more difficult, but it's because of the value that he holds. And I think, in his situation, if you weren't using that as leverage, if you weren't going get the best situation, go and read all your offers, kind of laying everything down on the table before your last season, I feel like you might be shorting yourself. So I can understand, I can see why they're doing what they're doing. But he took his official visit to LSU this past weekend. It was a week after his visit at Ohio State. It was also a week before what is at the end of this week for him, a trip to Oregon. And after the trip to Oregon, he'll go back to the University of Texas, and that'll end his official visit. So LSU was second in line of 4. But according to Dakorien Moore, LSU jumped right back in. Now, one would say, I never thought LSU jumped out. But I guess with a decommitment, you can kind of just see, oh, well, maybe it wasn't the best fit. Maybe he's just, changing his mind. But then he comes out less than a day after leaving Baton Rouge talking about LSU making a big impression. And I think the biggest thing that they did that turned his head, that captured his imagination, I guess you could say, is pairing him with Ja'Marr Chase. Because there's not a school that could really do that with such a polarizing figure, such a big, notable athlete that's making, waves in the NFL. Yeah, maybe Justin Jefferson, but he's also at LSU. Ja'Marr Chase is in the middle of a pretty big contract negotiation with the Bengals, as well as, they are with T. Higgins. But Ja'Marr Chase, just to kind of put it in perspective, he is one of the most notable college football players of all time, not just LSU players. When you have that repertoire of developing players, of getting people to play on Sundays, of getting people to know your name, of getting you to be a household name, that is such a huge ace up your sleeve in recruiting. It really is. I mean, we just said that the ace up their sleeve is them getting kids on campus at the same time, same place, together. How about getting them on, the same page, but doing it with stars that they're watching on the NFL? Whether it be a Joe Burrow, a Justin Jefferson, a Ja'Marr Chase. When you have that arsenal of NFL LSU talent and you use it in the recruiting efforts, that's how you're getting ahead. Because that's what LSU possesses over these teams. I think if you're looking at Oregon, at Texas, at Ohio State, yeah, they got players at the next level, and they even have players at the next level at the wide receiver position, but they have nobody at the next level that's shaking and moving like these guys are. Even the two wide receiver draft prospects that LSU just had, in Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr., are said to be the X factors for their team moving forward, and said to be, some of the best wide receiver prospects that we've seen. Malik Neighbors is turning heads. We just had a draft scout say, or not a draft scout, but an analyst say that he had the best practice as a Giants wide receiver had since Odell Beckham. That's insane to hear, because it's kind of just like, what that says to me is that it's not just, LSU's stacking up all kind of wide receivers. What it's saying to me is that they're getting them ready to play instantly. It's not Ja'Marr Chase, Malik Neighbors, Justin Jefferson get drafted, and years later they develop into a star. Most of these kids, most of these stars that we've seen from LSU have hit the ground running instantly. Joe Burrow going to a Super Bowl in his second year, Ja'Marr going in his first year. Justin Jefferson's first contract extension makes him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. And then the highest paid quarterback is Joe Burrow. So it's like, yeah, the NIL money's cool. Yeah, all this, short-term talk is fine. But LSU will put it into a long-term perspective for him to be able to realize. And I think that's what made LSU get back in the race, to quote Dakorien Moore. I think when you sit him down and you get the big picture and you tell him, look, Dakorien, it's not a you getting paid right now thing. It's not a you're walking into your visit and you see Lamborghinis rented from a dealership. No, we're going to pair you with an NFL star. This is a star. You're not renting this. You're not renting this talent. He's going to sign the contract. He's a top wide receiver. He's going to still be playing on Sundays, whether, you come here or not. And I think that message to Dakorien Moore, it just shows that LSU's ready and they're able to put people around him to get him into that position. I think that's the most interesting part about this recruitment. People want to bring up NIL. People want to bring up money. Let's look at what LSU's possessing that not a lot of schools are possessing, and it's star power. If you rely on that, if you push that the right way, that's the ace up the sleeve that LSU needs. And yeah, some schools like a Georgia or an Alabama, they can confront that. And Alabama's doing a great job right now with Kalen DeBoer in their recruiting efforts. They had a big offensive line commitment, and some people were saying Bama's back. And they could be, but I don't think LSU's win anywhere, especially in terms of recruiting. I mean, they're getting the Louisiana talent. Last cycle, 9 out of 10 top recruits stay. But they're also plucking that in out-of-state talent as well. LSU's getting the number 1 running back, number 1 quarterback, number 1 inside offensive lineman. One of those is from Louisiana, and Harlan Berry. They had the number 1 wide receiver, who's from Texas. They're recruiting him, as well as recruiting the number 2 wide receiver from Texas. You got number 1 corner, DJ Pickett, coming from Florida. You got the quarterback from Michigan. I mean, it's just, what more does Brian Kelly have to do to be able to prove to not just the recruits, not just the college football world, but just everybody in general that, this culture is a culture that is attracting champions and people that want to be at that next level performing, accomplishing dreams. I think that this is really the spot to be if that's your mindset. Everybody keeps saying keep the main thing the main thing. It seems like that's what LSU's doing. They're graduating champions. They're putting everybody in a situation to be able to succeed. LSU and the football side of things, they're not exactly in the national championship picture yet, but when you got a 12-man playoff, when the SEC shakes up the way that they're doing the seeding for the conference championship, it's hard to, rule them out of contention. If we're picking 5 teams in the SEC, you'd be crazy to leave LSU out of the 5. A lot of people are going to put them at the bottom. I'd put them toward a 3. The only 2 teams that I could really legitimately take, serious over an LSU would be a Georgia and an Alabama. I'm not going to give Texas their just due yet. That's a tough schedule that they're going to have to bite through. The SEC, it brings the best out of you because you're getting slam, weeks in a row. It's going to be interesting. But, yeah, that's all the, I would say, recruiting news we have for you. Dakorien Moore, good impression at LSU. His mom, I would say this, last thing about Dakorien Moore, his mom obviously is going to have a lot to do with the decision that he makes. He wants to stay around family. He wants to be able to still have that connection. He's staying home in Texas, potentially University of Texas, this, that, and the third group in Austin. I think, though, with how they were able to present the university and just their intentions for Dakorien and what they envision for him in the future, I think, the mom would be comfortable sending him here just because Louisiana and LSU, it's a little different than an out-of-state university that you're sending your kid away to. It's not like, I'm not going to say not every school has this, but LSU and just the southern hospitality, it's a little different. I think she said that she got the vibes. She understood the feelings. They were all felt. If there was a spot that she would have to send Dakorien to, whether it be all the way in Eugene, Oregon, all the way in Ohio, or about 5 to 6 hours away to Baton Rouge, it seems to be one of the more likely spots comparatively to how far everyone else is. I'm just saying, it's not out of the realm of possibility. They had a good impression on the mom. If it's really about staying close to family and just having that culture and that connection, I think LSU crosses all of those boxes. So I wouldn't rule them out of the Dakorien Moore race yet. It might be improbable, but I've seen crazier things happen in college football recruiting.